Welcome back to Allison Customs Project Car TV. We're back on the Scout, finishing up the roll bar, and I'm going to just cruise right through how I came up with my measurements and where my bins were going to be and everything. If you haven't watched part one of this roll bar, where I explained all that, go back and catch that, and this will make a little more sense. But we're going to get right into it today. So what I've got is I want the drop bars, the down bars, so we have our main hoop and the bar that goes back and over the wheel well tire to be back here somewhere. I want my down bar to have two bins in it. I want from the current bar, the main hoop, to where I want to start my first bin is 34 inches, and I want to come up from the floor 20 inches, and then I picked the angle based on the shape of the rear window, and that rear window is kind of comes down like that and like this, and then goes forward and then kind of square there. So when I measure the angle, this angle right here compared to this, so when I measure this angle to this angle to from the back window to this is where this 23.5 degrees comes in. My down bar is not going to come down behind the window, so it's going to be seen, and it's going to be seen up here somewhere. So as it comes down, it's running up here to the main hoop up here. It's going to come down, and then I can turn like that. So that's the reason I came up with that angle. And when I do that, then I have about 20 inches between where I want my horizontal bar and where I want my vertical bar. Now, that BendItOnline.com program that we used will not handle just the down bars. So we're going to tell the BendItOnline.com that we're building another main hoop, and this is 20 inches, 23.5 degrees, 20 inches, 66.5 degrees, and that's just the other half of 23 to get to 99. And then we wanted to come over 34. Well, we need to double that, so we tell it it's 68 across the top. And then right down the other side with the same numbers. So we go, it says from 0, go 1972, and then bend 24 degrees, we'll bend 23.5 because we're going to be that close to it. Second mark at 36.98, and then the third mark where it's going to actually start bending back down the other way would be 104, so we'll cut that in half, 52.03. And that's where we'll cut it. Wrong! What I was showing you on BendItOnline.com was correct until I told you where to cut off the tubing at 54 inches. And here's why. If you cut the tubing off at 54 inches, you get a really nice piece of tubing with nice bends. This one's where the floor would be. This is where it comes up, about the top of the bed rail, then at the roof. Got a nice slope here that matches the window, and we're about that much too short. Don't cut it off at 54 inches. I guess I was tired, I don't know, but not only did I tell you to do it, I did it. So as infallible as I like to make everybody believe I am, I screwed it up. I told you to take half of the 104.06, 52.03, add a couple inches for room, cut it at 54 inches, you're going to be great. You end up with about 22 inches too short. What I should have told you to do is take the last bend, 36.98, we'll call that 37. The next bend at 104.06, call that 104, subtract it, you get 67 inches. Divide that by 2, now you get 33.5, and now you got to add that back to where your last bend started. So we go over here, 37 plus 33.5, that gets us to 70.5. The program always likes to add an inch, so I always do. That's 71.5. And then we need to have enough tubing to notch our new piece around the main tube. So the tubing's 2 inch, so you figure 2 inches anyway. So if we add that, that's 73.5, and I would take that to 74. Now, when I made mine, I went all the way to 76 when I made it the second time because I didn't want to come up too short. I ended up cutting 2.5 inches. You'll see that in the video. I ended up cutting 2.5 inches off of each, at the end off each one. So that's an excessive amount, you know, but I'd rather waste 2.5 inches than 54 inches like I did the first time. Now the second way to calculate this, start at your 37 inches, the last bend, the start of the last bend, 36.98. I measured on one of my test bends the center measurement, and it was like 9 3/4. I just called it 10 inches for the math. Well, this bend is half of that radius is in the first bend, and half of it's in the second bend, half the length rather of the radius. So we're not worried about the first 5 inches, but we are worried about the second 5, I guess, because the first 5 is accounted for in this first bend. So we're going to add 5 inches. That gets us to 42. And then we wanted this top bar from the center of the bend out to be 34. So 76 inches. Comes out to exactly what I used. So you can do it either way, and you're going to get enough tubing that you can notch it and you know, tweak it, because you may notch it a little bit and then decide, well, I want to move the notch, or I want to rotate the notch a little bit more. So don't cut it off at 54. This is wrong. Exit out. Cut it off at 76 inches, 74 inches, anywhere in there. You're going to be safe, and you'll know why the math is the way it is. Apologize for leading you off astray there. I wanted to get you back on track and why we were doing it and what not to do, because, you know, I make plenty of mistakes out here. I cut tubing the wrong length, or I'll weld something and then look at it and decide I don't like it and go back and cut it loose and re-weld it. And you know, so don't be afraid to make errors. Just figure out what you did wrong and correct them so that the second piece is nice. Because that's the thing, is I bent the first one, you'll see in the video. The second one came out perfect the first try. You know, I mean, I had all the angles exactly right. So this one, when I realized I'd made it too short, it just became scrap. But when I made the next one, I did use this first one and measured, okay, hey, I added 4.5 degrees to my bend for the spring back. Was that enough or too much? And on the 23.5 degree bend, that 4.5 degrees of spring back was about 1/2 to 3/4 of a degree too much when I measured it with the actual tubing with a protractor. And when I measured the upper bend, the 66.5, the 4.5 was about a degree too little. So by making this test half, I got the next two, you know, perfectly correct. But I did have to put it in the bender. I think I put the second one in the bender a second time just to tweak it a little bit. You know, I bent it already, checked it, wasn't 100% happy with it, so I put it back in there and added a degree on one degree on one of them or something, just to get it narrowed down. Well, you make a note of that, and then the second one comes out perfect. So, or my third one. So don't be afraid to make an error. Just correct it and move on so you can get your project done. Our next step is we need to notch the end of our down bar, and we need to notch it into the main hoop. So this is just another bend that I did when I was making a few practice bends, and trying to show you what I want to do in the truck would be just nearly impossible. So what the idea is, as you set it in the truck, you decide where you're going to hit your tube. And it does matter in the strength to keep it from bending over. If you're way down here, all of this could, in theory, bend over the top. Or, well, in practice, if you hit hard enough. You do want to try and support this roll bar more towards the top than below the bend. Now, once you kind of get your bar, your down bar, you get it level or whatever angle you're looking for to have it match, and you find where you're at in the tube, you kind of have to imagine there's a center line of this tube. Well, there is a center line. And where this tube is going to hit, doesn't matter where it's at, you hit it, you want to then mark where that center line is on both sides. With that information, you decide how far back. So in this case, I drew a line right here at 2.5 inches back from the end, and that's, I did the other bar exactly 2.5 inches, and I liked how it came out, so I'm going to do this one the same. And then with this line and the one on the opposite side, and they should be straight across from each other, marked, then wherever that crosses down here, that is the edge of your hole. So let me show you on, let me flip this around a bit. This is actually for the other side. So here are the cross marks I was just talking about, and what's going to happen is we're going to put our hole saw like that. One edge of the hole saw is going to cut there. We're ready to do our install. Got the tubing notched, and I'm using this magnet down here as a spacer away from the wall. That's because there's 2 bolts back here that I may have to eventually get to. I assume they're for the gas filler or something, but so we may have to get to those. So we've got our floor plate sitting here, and the top of this bar runs a real nice even gap along the roof line there. This angle matches the back window angle, and I couldn't go any further back because this panel right here, if you can even see it, that's to access the fuel filler. So this is pretty much what we want and where we want it. We've got the angle on the leg kicked here so that this is kicked in just a hair, and I'm going to just space it about a 3/8 of an inch, half an inch off the plastic here to give it a nice lean in so the top will be easy to take off. Get a couple of good tacks on the main hoop up here, and then we'll put a ratchet strap around this right in here so that it, across there, so that this point is braced. Then we'll put another ratchet strap here and pull backwards to just pull that leg out to where we get a nice even straight line right here. It only needs to move about 1/4 of an inch, so it's not going to be very much. And once we have that, then we can burn in the bottom and burn the plate to the floor. Alright, so with this strap up here, we're making this bend be the one that flexes when we pull back on this. And we've got a good tack up there on the main roll bar. We've got this strap in here snugged up, and then we've got this strap pulling. It didn't have to pull very tight, but that got it nice and parallel to this body line right here, or that door seam right there. Now with all that done, I've gone ahead and gotten a tack in there, and since we left a gap back behind the back side there, we'll be able to burn a weld all the way in. So this one doesn't have to come back out like we did the main hoop. So now the next trick is just to make the passenger side match the driver's side in the way it fits. And what we'll do is get a measurement up there in the corner between the outside wall and the roll bar, and make sure we set this one in the same place. We'll get this gap the same, this gap the same, and then we'll measure from here to here and make sure we get that roll bar base set in the same place. So that one's tacked in. I'm going to go ahead and pull my straps loose, and we're going to tack in this other side. Well, there we have it, guys. It's tacked in, and it's getting pretty late here, so can't really see too well without getting a bunch of the lights out, but I'll burn in the feet tomorrow, and then probably get me a piece of sheet metal put up there and then burn in as much of that as I can reach. Same on this side over here. And then I'm considering putting another bar across the back. It would have to be up high to keep the cargo space, if you will, usable. But kind of thinking it might be a good idea so that these couldn't cave in this way if you ever did get it in trouble. So I'll ponder that one. I think I have enough tubing left out of the... Right up here is where I've been thinking I want to try and do something that ties into the windshield frame. But I don't want a front hoop, and there's even some flat bar stuff that you can do right up next to the doors, and then it comes up through the dash. I don't really want all that. I just kind of would like the two bars up here. So if I can figure that out without too much trouble, I'll make that as well. That's about it. So 2 bars there are pretty quick and easy. First one's a little slow because you got to get all the measurements right, and then you end up tweaking it. I ended up putting mine back in the bender a second time and adding a couple of degrees. I think 1 degree or 2 degrees on one bend and 2 or 3 degrees on the other bend, just to get it to where everything would line up right and look good. The second one, I made all the notes for that one, so the second one went real fast. I bent it all in one shot and it lined up exactly where it was supposed to be. The notches, I showed you how to do those, and that's just a matter of getting in there and looking at it. It's really hard to try and show you in here what line to use, but on that test bar I was able to get you a pretty good idea of how you would come about aiming in here and figuring out where your notch needed to be. And that's pretty much it for what we're going to do with the roll bar. We got to put the plates underneath the truck to weld in, and that'll happen in the next couple days. So I think we're probably about done with modifications. Maybe. I'll leave you with, don't screw it up, but if you do, fix it. I'll leave you with, don't screw it up, but if you do, it's not the end of the world. Just use that as the lesson, fix it, and in my case, admit it so you guys can learn from it. Well, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications, all the YouTube stuff. Please find me on Facebook, Instagram. Follow along. I post pictures there occasionally of stuff I'm doing that doesn't quite make it to a video. And I'd love to hear comments from you. How do you think the project's going? You want to see more, or are you about done with the Scout? You want to see it running and driving, or what are we doing with it next? With all of that, I'm Jeff Allison. See you again next time on Allison Customs Project Car TV.